The congressional chamber buzzed with low voices and camera clicks. It was supposed to be another boring oversight hearing, policy talks, political posturing, all routine. But the air inside the room felt tight, like something dangerous was about to unfold. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat quietly at her desk, flipping through her notes with calm hands. Her mind was focused, sharp. She had done this before. She knew how to handle pressure. Across from her, Congressman Byron Donalds leaned forward with that familiar smirk. His tone already loaded with something more than politics. Some of us, he said loudly, actually studied economics and law, not just memorized talking points from MSNBC. Laughter, half fake, echoed through his side of the room. But Jasmine didn't move. Her eyes slowly lifted from the paper. She locked onto him with a stare, not of anger, but calculation. She had seen this kind of setup before. Loud insult, viral moment, perfect for social media. But there was something else behind Byron's eyes today. Something scripted. She let him finish. And then, calmly, she struck, with her voice low and precise. Jasmine took apart his insult, reminding him that she earned her law degree with honors. Worked 2 jobs, argued real court cases, and passed laws while others chased cable TV ratings. The room grew quieter. With every word, even the staffers stopped pretending to type. Byron's face twitched. He adjusted his tie, clearly off balance. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words cut sharper than any yell ever could. When she finally said, "Being loud doesn't mean you're right. It just means you're interrupting progress," the chamber nearly exploded with silent electricity. A few reporters gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Even Byron's aides looked stunned. Then came the silence, that thick, uncomfortable silence that meant someone had just lost control of their narrative. But Jasmine didn't celebrate. She saw something strange in the back of the room, a man, thin, gray-haired, wearing a visitor's pass. Not staff, not press, not familiar. He was watching her with quiet interest, not writing, not filming. His badge said Press Belgrade, a foreign journalist. Jasmine made a mental note. After the hearing ended, she stepped out into the hallway. Her team caught up, congratulating her on the moment. The clip had already hit Twitter. Thousands of retweets in under 5 minutes. But then a hand brushed her arm. A Capitol maintenance worker, or someone dressed like one, leaned close and slipped something into her palm. A plain white envelope. No stamp, just a red seal on the back. He said nothing, just whispered. It wasn't about education. It was about erasure. Then he walked away before she could ask anything. Jasmine stared at the envelope, her breath shallow. She opened it slowly. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a printout of a video frame. It showed Byron Donalds mid-speech. But behind him was something odd. A line of text visible on the chamber monitor for a split second, blurred but legible. It said, "Subject JC file marked for review by EduCom 13. Order Erasure Protocol." What was EduCom 13? She rushed back to her office, her heart pounding. Her staff had the video of the exchange. They were already prepping it for media. But when Jasmine reviewed the official congressional stream, her eyes narrowed. A piece was missing. 10 seconds were gone right after Byron's insult. Right before her reply, she compared it to a live stream rip from a news site. The missing part included Byron muttering under his breath something Jasmine hadn't heard during the live hearing. She turned up the volume. He said she was supposed to be deleted already. Jasmine sat back in her chair, mind spinning. This wasn't about debate. This wasn't about education. This was about something else, something darker. And someone was trying to make her disappear, not physically, but from history itself. The office was quiet, but Jasmine's thoughts were not. She stood by the window overlooking Capitol Hill, the envelope still in her hand. The words on the paper echoed in her head. Subject: JC file marked for review by EduCom 13. Order: erasure protocol. Erasure. Not criticism. Not opposition. Erasure, her chief of staff, Nadia, entered the room holding a tablet. C-SPAN just uploaded the full stream, Nadia said. But it's still missing those 10 seconds. I know, Jasmine replied, eyes not leaving the street below. I've already seen the raw version. Someone edited the congressional record live. Nadia frowned. That's impossible. That feed is hardwired into the Library of Congress. System: only the sergeant-at-arms or an authorized contractor could, or someone higher than both. Jasmine interrupted. Nadia placed the tablet on the desk. You want me to look into this, EduCom 13? Yes, quietly. Use our private servers. Nothing connected to house networks. Jasmine turned back to her desk and opened her encrypted laptop. The phrase, erasure protocol, kept echoing. Didn't sound like political theater. Sounded like an operation. She entered a secure chat room used by a small circle of reformist lawmakers and a few trusted journalists. Codename Civic Signal. A user named Veritostix was already online. 'Twas a handle she trusted, an independent researcher who'd exposed lobbying scams 2 years earlier. She typed, need background on something called EduCom 13, linked to data suppression or intelligence. The reply came within 30 seconds. That's not a public-facing entity. Give me 2 hours. Check your blind inbox after midnight. Jasmine sighed and closed the laptop. If Veritas was spooked, it was serious. She decided to revisit the moment that had started it all, Byron Donald's jab at her education. She rewatched the clip, but this time she slowed it to 0.25 speed, watching his face carefully. That's when she saw it. As Byron made his remark, his eyes didn't lock on her. They flicked sideways just for a second. Toward the man in the back row, the journalist. She paused the frame, still no name tag visible, but his press badge had a code she could enhance. Jasmine forwarded it to Nadia. Run this badge through the International Visitor Registry. Nadia looked uneasy. You think this guy was part of it? I think Byron was performing for someone, Jasmine said. And that someone wasn't the American public. 15 minutes later, Nadia returned. The badge is fake. It's not in the system. Whoever he wasn't cleared by Capitol Security. That was the tipping point. Jasmine's instincts, sharpened in courtrooms and campaigns, told her something big was unfolding. Bigger than ego, bigger than Byron. Someone wanted her educational past discredited. Someone had planted a foreign observer in the hearing. And someone had access to congressional broadcast feeds, enough to erase 10 seconds of real-time footage. She picked up her phone, pulled out the SIM, and dropped it into a Faraday sleeve. Then she took a second phone, one only a few people knew about, and dialed. A gruff voice answered. No greeting. Still got your friends and archives? She asked. A pause. Then, depends what you're digging for. EduCom 13. Another pause. Where did you hear that? I need answers tonight. Sigh, Jasmine. That's not just federal. That's buried under black budget education policy initiatives. The kind that came after the Patriot Act. Digital tracking of academic records, algorithmic integrity profiling. It's not public. It's barely legal. And what's erasure protocol? It's a kill switch, used when someone's academic profile is flagged as a threat to national political equilibrium. Usually triggers subtle media attacks, records redaction, or, worse, smears, untraceable charges. AI-forged plagiarism evidence, sometimes disbarment. Depends on the profile target. Jasmine's chest tightened. Has this ever been used on a sitting member of Congress? Silence. Only. Once, 2013. Woman from Detroit came after a defense hearing. 2 months later, she resigned. Cited health reasons. Moved to Ghana. Never came back. Jasmine's hand trembled slightly. She thanked the contact and hung up. This was real. It was happening to her. She turned to Nadia. Call in the Guardian contact. It's the one we met last year in Atlanta. Tell him I have a story. You want to go public? No, not yet. I want to go deeper. I want to know who's running Edgecom 13, who approved Byron's talking points, and who sent the man in the back row. As night fell on D.C., Jasmine sat alone staring at the envelope again. Her education wasn't under attack. Her existence in the system was. Someone had decided she was no longer useful or worse, too dangerous to let rise any higher. She wasn't just fighting a narrative anymore. She was fighting for the truth to survive. Rain hit the windows hard as Jasmine's car pulled up to the back entrance of a narrow Georgian building tucked in a quiet corner of D.C. It looked like an old bookstore from the outside, but tonight it was the meeting point. Leah Mathis, the American correspondent for The Guardian, stood outside under a black umbrella. She was in her early 40s, fast-talking, sharper than most editors on Capitol Hill, and completely unafraid of losing her press pass. Jasmine trusted her not because she was kind, but because she was dangerous in the right way. Inside, the lights were low. Jasmine handed her umbrella to a staffer and followed Leah into a back room that looked like it hadn't changed since the Cold War. Files, locked drawers, and old typewriters lined the shelves. In the center was a flat-screen monitor connected to a secure server. "You're not exaggerating?" Leah asked as she took a seat. "You're really being erased." Jasmine nodded and placed the printout from the envelope on the table. Leah's face tightened. Edgecom 13? I haven't heard that code name since. It's 2019. It was buried in a leak we never published. Came from an ex-NSA analyst. We couldn't verify it. You can now. Jasmine slid over her own research. The phrase erasure protocol had appeared in 3 other internal memos linked to obscure private intelligence contractors. One of them, Argus's Insight Systems, had a known contract with the Department of Education. Leah clicked through files on her encrypted laptop. Argus, yeah. They build school security AI, but a few years back they shifted to data integrity monitoring. Rumor was they ran simulations to predict which politicians could become narrative risks based on their backgrounds. But that project was shut down after a lawsuit from a European Union watchdog. Shut down or renamed? Jasmine asked. Leah looked at her. You think Byron Donalds is working with them? I think he's being used by someone who is, Jasmine said. He recited a script that was meant to trigger a scandal. But it wasn't about me personally. It was about my credibility, my right to lead. Leah leaned back. Okay, let's say you're right. That means your educational background was flagged. Who would benefit from undermining it? Jasmine replied without hesitation. Private education interests, corporate donors, foreign investors in American charter schools. Anyone threatened by a progressive black woman who writes policy with? Teeth. Leah tapped a few keys. Let me show you something. A new fund, the Liberty Trust. Launched 2 months ago. Quietly, they've already donated 2 PACs. Tied to education reform and federal school restructuring. She pulled up a document showing the funds board. Jasmine's eyes widened. One of the names was Victor Miles, a retired U.S. intelligence advisor turned lobbyist. He was once stationed in Nairobi during the early 2000s, Leah said. Helped design counter-influence programs for emerging democracies. Now, he's trying to reshape public education back home by filtering who gets to rise inside the system. Jasmine scanned the list further. Another name stood out. Madeline Ashcroft. Former Senate advisor, now VP at Argus Insight Systems. This isn't just about me, Jasmine whispered. They're running a data war on future leaders before they can become threats. Leah nodded. You said a man was watching you during the hearing. You've got a face? I paused the video. Got a partial badge code, Nadia's running it. Leah slid her a tablet. So while you were being erased, I found something that was quietly added. A shell university in Moldova just published a thesis under your name. complete with fake citations. Jasmine's blood ran cold. They planted false records, likely as insurance. In a month, some blog will discover it, accuse you of plagiarism. It's happened before. Jasmine's phone buzzed. It was Nadia. One line, badge. Traced, not press. Former IC, cleaned identity. Name Henry Veer. Leah read over her shoulder. That name was in the Snowden docs. CIA contractor turned private consultant. Disappeared in 2015. He didn't disappear, Jasmine said. He was just reassigned. Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered. The server monitor went black. Leah froze. We're being watched. Jasmine stood. We need to move. Whatever's coming next isn't going to be legal. They backed up their drives and split. Jasmine took a separate car with a burner phone. The last thing she told Leah before parting ways was, send this. To intercept ProPublica, even Al Jazeera. Don't wait for me. Leah nodded. Get somewhere safe. As Jasmine's car pulled away, she thought of something Byron had said the day of the hearing. Some of us actually studied economics and law. No one says something that arrogant unless they think they're protected. It wasn't just about discrediting her. It was about ensuring people like her never rose again. The safe house was located in the hills outside. Baltimore, a quiet stone cottage once owned by a retired diplomat. Now, it served as a meeting point for whistleblowers, rogue journalists, and the kind of politicians who no longer trusted their own party's security briefings. Jasmine Crockett arrived just after midnight. She had driven herself, using a car with untraceable plates. The man waiting inside went by the alias Eli Shepard. No one knew his real name. He was once a cyber defense strategist for the Department of Homeland Security. Then, 2 years ago, he vanished after testifying behind closed doors about silent architecture, data systems designed not to protect information, but to edit it in real time. He didn't bother with greetings. You're being digitally shadowed, he said, handing Jasmine a burner phone. They're tracking your travel through facial index, not GPS. Stay away from DC for 48 hours. Jasmine sat down, exhausted, but steady. We confirmed the name Henry Veer. He was in the room during the hearing. Former CIA asset, working for someone tied to a group called Edgecom 13. Eli nodded slowly. It's not just one group. Think of Edgecom 13 as a node. A branch of something older, a strategy born after 9/11s. They called it academic influence surveillance. It was designed to flag students with potential to shift ideological norms, especially minority students, especially ones who wouldn't stay quiet. Jasmine blinked. You're telling me this goes back to college? Further. Grade scores, charter school files, behavior logs from when you were 13. You were marked when you first submitted an op-ed in high school criticizing foreign military aid. Jasmine felt her throat tighten. She remembered that piece. A few paragraphs. Published in a student journal. She never imagined someone logged it, let alone profiled her for it. They can't delete me, she whispered. They don't have to, Eli replied. They just need to distort you. Plant one fake thesis, one questionable scholarship, one misleading clip. Then let the media do the rest. He opened a laptop and showed her a chart. A digital map of targeted public figures whose reputations were destroyed not through scandal, but through quiet information warfare. Most were educators, civil rights lawyers, investigative journalists. They call it the silence pipeline. Eli said, you don't get fired. You don't get jailed. You just get dismissed. Jasmine studied the chart. Her name had been added a week ago. Next to it was a line of red text. Accelerate narrative compromise. Deploy controlled. Opposition, she pointed to it. That means Byron, or someone using him. Remember, the system loves a messenger who looks like the message. A black man questioning your credentials on national TV. It's perfect for them. No one questions the source. Outside, a black SUV slowed as it passed the house. Eli turned off all lights and powered down the laptop. Grab your things. We're switching locations. Before leaving, Jasmine sent Nadia a single encrypted message. They're writing my history for me. The next morning in Washington, Byron Donald stood at the podium during a press event. He wore a calm smile, but it didn't reach. His team had prepared a statement that claimed his remarks were taken out of context. He praised disagreement and healthy debate, but reporters weren't buying it. One asked Congressman, "Were you given talking points?" Before the hearing by external consultants. Byron paused. "I prepare my own remarks." "Then why was a foreign intelligence contractor seated behind you?" He froze. The question hadn't been cleared by his team. Flashes from cameras filled the air. He cleared his throat and walked off, ignoring the next questions. Behind him, one of his aides made a call. Short, quiet. "She's gone underground," the voice said. "We may need to escalate." Elsewhere, Jasmine met with a new contact, an Eastern European diplomat who had once served in a UN education working group. The woman, older and tired-looking, handed her a thin leather folder. "Gideon Foundation," she said. Publicly, they fund global literacy and civic growth. Privately, they manipulate political credibility. Educom 13 is one of their tools. But Gideon? That's who you need to expose. Inside the folder were donation records, shell companies tied to lobbying firms, media groups, even public schools. Some of them had passed laws limiting how Black history could be taught in southern states. Others had ties to AI learning, companies that quietly filtered what students could access about past social movements. One of the companies was Ashcroft Dynamics, headed by Madeline Ashcroft, same name Jasmine had seen before. "What is this?" Jasmine asked. "Influence. Laundering," the diplomat said. "They don't censor truth. They make truth look inconvenient." The sun barely rose behind the thick gray clouds over Washington, D.C., when Jasmine's message hit the internet. She hadn't posted it through official channels or even her own team. Instead, she had sent it to 3 independent platforms, one based in Iceland, another in South Africa, and a third that only surfaced on encrypted browsers. The video was 7 minutes long, calm, controlled, but devastating. She explained Educom 13. She named Gideon Foundation. She revealed the edits in the congressional broadcast feed and the smear tactics used to discredit her academic record. She showed proof of a fake thesis uploaded under her name, traced back to a Moldova server tied to a US-based consulting firm. The clip ended with Jasmine staring into the camera. "This is bigger than me. They're not erasing my record. They're editing the future." Within hours, hashtags exploded. Hashtag erase no more, hashtag edu.com files, hashtag Jasmine exposed. The system major outlets hesitated, unsure whether to cover the story. But TikTok creators, student networks, and even teachers' unions picked it up and amplified it faster than any newsroom ever could. In Texas, students walked out of public school classrooms holding signs that read, "We are not risk indexes." And then, like clockwork, came the retaliation. First, a major education website ran a story titled, "Did Representative Jasmine Crockett Cheat Her Way Through Law School?" The article was filled with anonymous sources. No hard evidence, but just enough suspicion to ignite online debates. Then came a leaked email from a former professor claiming Jasmine had plagiarized phrasing. In one of her second-year assignments, a claim based on a manipulated document planted 2 nights earlier. By mid-afternoon, a coordinated attack had begun. Cable news split down party lines. Some networks called her brave. Others called her a manipulator. Jasmine watched it unfold from a private apartment in Baltimore, standing in front of a wall covered in red string and names like a detective building a case no one wanted to solve. Her phone rang. Leah from The Guardian. They're launching something called Operation Glass Frame, she said. Internal memo leaked from Ashcroft Dynamics. It's a cleanup protocol, digital, reputational, even legal. Jasmine was quiet. They're trying to flood the system with so much confusion, no one knows what's real. Exactly, Leah replied. Discredit the message by overwhelming it with noise. And guess who's going on air tonight? Byron. 8 p.m. exclusive interview. Fox, they're going to flip the whole narrative, paint you as unstable, paranoid, possibly even compromised. Jasmine closed her eyes. Let them try. She hung up and opened her laptop. There was a message from Veritas to Sex, her anonymous cyber contact. It included a file, influence_risk_index_full.db, the full list. Hundreds of names, professors, judges, activists, city council members, all marked by EduComp 13 with categories like Comes Hazard Narrative Deviant. Systemic disruptor next to each name. A recommended suppression tactic. Most were labeled media smearing, funding retraction. Credential. Dispute. Jasmine's name was at the top, marked in red. Primary. Initiate full neutralization. She forwarded the file to Leah, encrypted and time-released. Then she called someone she hadn't spoken to in years, her mother. Mama, she said, her voice suddenly soft. I need to ask you something. Her mother paused. I figured you might call after I saw your face on every channel this morning. Back in 2003, Jasmine said Daddy donated to a foreign education relief fund. I need to know who ran it. There was silence. Then her mother answered. It wasn't just a donation. It was a project. He was part of a pilot program that helped rebuild schools in Sierra Leone. But the group was backed by American intelligence. They called it Descant. Jasmine's breath caught. She had seen that name before. A reference buried in the files from Eli Shepard under a subsection titled Legacy Threats. It meant one thing. She hadn't been targeted because of her words today. She had been watched for decades because of a connection she never even knew existed. They never stopped watching us, her mother whispered. Not since your father refused to sign the agreement. What agreement? That we'd stay quiet? Jasmine closed her eyes. The storm had been growing for years, but now the wind was at her back and she was done hiding. That night, while Byron Donald sat on national TV accusing her of inventing conspiracies. Jasmine's evidence began surfacing through encrypted newsrooms and trusted international outlets. The documents were real, the system had been rigged, and the world at last was listening. The next morning, Capitol Hill was silent, not in sound, but in spirit. Offices were open, suits walked the marble halls, cameras pointed as usual, but a strange, invisible line had been crossed. Something in the air had changed, and everyone felt it. Jasmine Crockett's leaked files had broken containment. The EduComp 13 database was now public. The Intercept published the names. ProPublica followed with a breakdown of influence strategies. International outlets compared the methods to digital warfare. Even the Washington Post ran a front-page headline that read, Congresswoman claims, erasure protocol and has the receipts. For the first time, the system didn't have a unified response. Some officials panicked. Others denied it flatly. But a few quietly, cautiously, began to reach out to Jasmine's office. Not to threaten, but to talk. In the Baltimore apartment, Jasmine watched the chaos from a muted screen. Her eyes were focused on a different feed, a live encryption stream from Veritastx. New information was flowing in. Nadia walked in holding a steaming mug. They're offering you airtime, she said. All of them. CNN, BBC, even NPR. Jasmine didn't look up. Not yet. I want the final piece first. Which one? The who. Not just the contractors or the messengers. The command. She meant the one person who had authority to mark her file primary. At 2:13 p.m., her secure laptop pinged. Veritastix had found something. Buried in the metadata of Ashcroft Dynamics cloud servers was a transfer log. Last month, just before Byron's hearing, someone uploaded a behavioral profile to Edgecom 30's core intelligence system. The user ID was scrambled. But the IP address led to a closed federal network, U.S. Executive Intelligence Oversight Committee. The upload originated from a satellite office in Virginia, a non-disclosed location. The system registered only one device authorized for such uploads. The machine belonged to Victor Miles, the retired intelligence advisor, the Gideon Foundation board member, the man who, according to federal records, hadn't been active in government in over 6 years. Jasmine's heart thudded. Victor Miles wasn't just a contractor or a lobbyist. He was the architect. He'd been quiet for a decade, but still had access. And he used it to try and destroy her credibility before she could gain momentum. Eli Shepard confirmed it within minutes. Miles designed part of Edgecom during its pilot phase. Back then, they called it Horizon Slate. It was meant to track ideological shifts in civil leaders. But it got shelved officially. Behind the scenes, they just renamed it, restructured it, and embedded it into private education oversight programs. Gideon was the cover, and he never left, Jasmine asked. No, Eli replied. He went deeper. Jasmine knew. She had only one option left. She had to confront him. She set up a decoy meeting request, a supposed donor event near Alexandria. Gideon couldn't resist media control opportunities. Sure enough, the RSVP came through. Victor Miles would attend. Quietly, no press, no public statement. It was held at a glass-walled building overlooking the Potomac. Inside, wealthy guests, mingled with wine and hushed laughter. Jasmine entered alone, dressed not in political armor but civilian black. She walked straight to the upper floor, and there he was. Victor Miles, tall, white hair, eyes like frost. He stood near a window, sipping dark liquor. When he saw her, he didn't flinch. Congresswoman Crockett, he said calmly. I didn't expect you to be so direct. You marked me, she replied, and you did it through a system. No one voted for, he turned. We're trying to protect something fragile. You of all people should understand the value of controlling disruption. You don't get to define disruption, she said. You built a system to erase leaders who didn't fit your model. You almost buried me before I even began. You were identified as high risk. For what? She asked. For being unmanageable, he said. For not bending when instructed. For inspiring others to think credentials mean more than compliance. Jasmine stepped closer. That wasn't a risk. That was a threat to you. To people like you. He chuckled softly. The system doesn't survive on truth, Congresswoman. It survives on predictability. And yet here I am. She said, voice steady, unpredictable. He paused. You've won the moment. But the moment is not the war. No, she replied. But it's a start. She pulled a small recorder from her coat. The red light blinked. She had streamed. The entire conversation lived to the Guardian's investigative desk. Miles blinked for the first time. That was unwise. That was necessary, she said, and she walked away. That night, Miles' face appeared across global headlines. Congressional oversight committees opened emergency inquiries. Funding was frozen. But Jasmine knew this wasn't over. She had just exposed the front. The machine still ran underneath, slick, hidden, patient, and it would come again. But next time, it wouldn't catch her off guard. The Senate hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. Security was doubled. Reporters packed the marble hallways. Protesters stood outside the Capitol steps holding placards with phrases like, "Democracy doesn't delete." "We are the index." Crockett versus the machine. Inside, the room buzzed with restrained anticipation. Jasmine Crockett entered through a private hallway, escorted not just by her staff, but by two marshals now assigned to her under a new congressional security directive. She took her seat at the witness table, not as the accused, but as the whistleblower. Across from her sat four members of the House Intelligence Subcommittee on Oversight, including two senators who, until the EduCom 13 leak, had never even acknowledged the program's existence. The chairman spoke first. Congresswoman Crockett, you are here today not under subpoena, but by your own request. You've alleged that a federally embedded data protocol has been used to compromise and erase the reputations of rising public servants, including yourself. We're listening. Jasmine didn't read from a script. Her voice was calm, grounded. I was targeted not because I lied, but because I told the truth, she said, because I refused to stay within the parameters set by donors, lobbyists, and off-the-record consultants. EduCom 13 didn't try to challenge my record. It tried to reconstruct it with lies, edits, and fake documents. And it did this with access that can only be granted from the highest levels of our intelligence architecture. A senator leaned forward. Are you saying that current federal systems are being used to interfere with domestic political growth? I'm saying they've been doing it for years. I just happened to fight back. Behind her, a monitor showed the now verified Influence Risk Index. Rows of names labeled by color and category. People who had never been accused of a crime never investigated, but still branded as threats to narrative control. Jasmine clicked a remote. A second screen displayed her confrontation with Victor Miles. The audio was crystal clear. Every word captured, every admission preserved. I didn't bring theories, she said. I brought proof. By noon, the hearing had become the most watched live stream in C-SPAN history. And then, right in the middle of the third round of questions, a staffer ran up to the chairman with a slip of paper. His expression froze, then shifted. Congresswoman Crockett, he said, tone changing, you may want to see this. She stood and read the message. Ashcroft Dynamics headquarters breached. Internal servers hacked. Live feed exposing classified communications currently being mirrored across 87 independent media nodes. Eli Shepard had done it. And Veritas Dex, and the nameless coders who had volunteered their skills after watching Jasmine's message go viral. The machine was burning from within. Later that night, Jasmine stood outside the Capitol, phone in hand, alone. Nadia had gone home to rest. The crowds had left, but the weight of everything still sat on her shoulders. The phone rang. Right. Was a secure call? She answered. You did it, said Leah from The Guardian. We just got the internal Gideon correspondence. They plan to expand the protocol to cover teachers and community organizers next. You've stopped it before that. Happened? I didn't stop it, Jasmine said softly. I just pulled the curtain back. Same thing these days. Jasmine looked out at the National Mall, the monuments, the lights, the silence that felt for the first time in weeks, like peace, not surveillance. I was never supposed to win, she said. But you didn't run to win, Leah replied. You ran to change the rules. And she had. That week, legislation was introduced to ban untraceable academic surveillance by private intelligence contractors. The bill was co-sponsored by lawmakers from both parties, those who had been on the index themselves, quietly, without knowing. Ashcroft Dynamics collapsed under the weight of investigations. Victor Miles was placed under federal inquiry. And EduCom 13 was exposed not as a rogue system, but a sanctioned tool built on fear. But the real victory. Across America, students, activists, emerging leaders began checking their digital trails, sharing knowledge, and building new watchdog networks. They called themselves the Remembered, because they refused to be erased. And Jasmine. She returned to her office a little quieter, a little wiser. But still burning because now she understood the full truth. Power doesn't just lie, it edits. And her job always would be to remind it. Some stories can't be rewritten. And some voices refuse to be silenced.